problem that code assistants are trying to solve is a very well-defined problem, right? It is a logic problem. It is not one of expressing something emotionally or controversially. So these are well-structured things, which means that as you're looking to build new models and train them, you can actually train them really fast because if something is incorrect, you can actually test it. You can test the output and train the model to like have corrections right away. So the rate of model improvement for coding models will actually be really, really fast.
Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bhartia and welcome to TFL Let's Talk. Today we have with us Saurabh Gupta, Director of Industry Solutions at Qarik. Saurabh, it's great to have you on the show.
Hi, good to be here.
We are going to have a look at AI code assistants, but from the perspective of course, an executive and also a developer. Before we kind of deep dive into that discussion, I would like to hear from you when we look at AI code assistants, what they are, what they actually do.
I'll give you the punchline right up front. If you're looking for code assistants and what they do, they help you do more of what you do, which means if it the internal joke was that they help scale mediocrity. So if you're a great developer, they'll help you do more because it'll help you get the boilerplate out much quickly. But if you're a mediocre developer or just getting started out, they're not going to make you a better one. They will just help you do more of what you're currently doing. So if you are not clear about which algorithm to use, they will not help you select it. If you're not clear about what path to take, they're not going to clarify that. But if you're looking to get a little bit of bootstrapping code out of the way, a little bit of scaffolding code out of the way, that's the sort of stuff that code assistants can be really helpful. And so if you're looking for something where they can give you some algorithmic complexity, those are sort of the areas where you will not find them to be super helpful.
So if we kind of draw a parallel to the analog world, it's more like there are tools, but tool is as good as a hand who uses that tool. In expert hand, you can increase the proficiency, but just because sometimes I'm into woodworking and hobbies, and sometimes just because you bought the latest tool does not mean just buying a good camera doesn't make you a good photographer.
I think the analogy you used was a really good one. In fact, I was going to quote the woodworking analogy, like, if you're a master craftsperson and you're using manual tools like your chisel and your hammer, you will produce great work. Power tools can help you scale that. You can get some of the bulk work out of the way, but the fine grain work you will still have to do with your chisel and hammer, right? Like you can't take a chainsaw to do, like a very detailed piece of art. I mean, some can, but again, power tools help you scale your craft, but don't necessarily make you better at your craft. The improvement in craftsmanship comes from practice, comes from like handling different situations. Like it's often said, right? There's no compression algorithm for experience. So the range of problems that you have to undergo to really be good at coding, that that does not change.
Of course, the current breed of developers, they do know how to code. They have to deal with languages. The next breed of developers, they still have to know how to write code because famously NVIDIA CEO says we don't need to learn coding anymore. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think someone will still have to write the systems that write the code as an AI. Like someone still has to code the AI. And if you look at a lot of the folks who are doing research in AI, they're great researchers and they have great math skills and they're doing really, really well with all the constructs around what transformations and what linear algebra, etc., has to occur. But when you look at the actual code that's produced, it really takes I would, again, going back to craftsmanship, like it really takes skilled craftsmanship to translate that into functioning software that is scalable, that runs fast, that is memory efficient, that can fit in a small footprint. Like those are an entirely different class of problems, which are yes, coding problems, but they're also computer science problems. And one other thing is, as you look at coding assistants, you cannot really use them to do core computer science. you can use them to manifest your ideas in computer science into specific pieces of code.
So the point is that yes, we will continue to need to learn to code.
What will happen is, and again, this is speculation because who's seen the future, but I think as the APIs become more and more standardized or understood, the need to know a specific API and write a lot of the specifics that bind to that API, that make the right REST call, that package up your JSON or other XML payload correctly, or create the correct bootstrapping for your protobuf to have the right matchings. That kind of toil, coding assistants will be really, really good at taking away that kind of toil. But if you have to design the system where you say, well, first I need this component needs to have these features will function in this way, that's not something that coding assistants can take away. That still needs to be done. That's still the hard work of thinking in terms of how you will actually structure a large scale system. How will you help it scale? How will you prevent hotspots in your sort of data fabric, et cetera, et cetera? Like those things, they're ever needed. That's not a problem space that an AI can solve just yet.
Right. And Kelsey Hightower, he also kind of posted on Twitter that, or X now, is that because of AI code, the code generated by AI, we actually need to. It's actually time to better understand fundamentals, how things actually work, because in his word, the amount of garbage that is going to be created, to be checked in, deployed, is going to increase. So actually, you will need much better, developer at top tier level. So yes, a lot of manual work will be done by AI, but you will actually need the expertise and basic understanding to tame that AI explosion.
I mean, I'll give you a very simple example. If you are using a language like Java, and you create some kind of a list, there are three different ways in which you can create a list, and they are very, very like their uses are very different based on the context. And if you don't create the right type of list, processing that can be really, really expensive. So if you want something that has an indexed-based lookup, and you end up creating a linked list, then you're creating a very, very suboptimal system, and vice versa. If you have a system where the list size can go very big and you end up creating an array list, that can become a very big problem because your array size will keep doubling over time. So again, it's very context dependent, and you cannot just assume that the AI will know what context you have. The AI may or may not understand if you give it a command that says this is going to be a high throughput system with indexed reads. Depending on how the LLM has been trained, it may or may not understand that this is what it means in terms of representing it for constant time lookup or an order n lookup. So those types of complexities, you still need very good, talented code review. But the boilerplate, it's like create the scaffolding for a mobile app that has a top bar and a bottom bar. Yeah, those are solved problems. That's templated stuff. You can quickly create that and be on your way.
Excellent, thank you. And one of the reasons I wanted to kind of build a baseline so that when we talk about how executives, developers, so we do know what we're talking about now. When we look at executives or a company who makes decision or developers, and we look at that, how do you see that code assistant will make life easier for developer? And then what does it mean for executive? What does it mean for budgeting? What does it mean for team building?
I think I can start at the executive end first, because in the end, it's a dollar sign, right? Most of these code assistants are about $20 a month. $20 a month represents about, depending on the wage, I'd say anywhere between 15 minutes to half an hour of work, like bill rate or salary for a developer. And if you take the fully loaded cost, it's probably even less than that. So, but the question is, what type of work are your developers doing? And if the work that your developers are doing is largely of the sort where it is glue code, where they have to take one system and then mutate it into another, they're writing logic in terms of, well, we have to get this data from this source and then transform it here and then put it somewhere else and then do something else with it. It's very structured logic. those types of requirements lend themselves really well to a code assistant. So you will actually be getting a massive productivity boost if the large part of the work that's being done by developers is of that sort. Then you go to the other end where there is either original product being built or new types of things being thought about. In that case, the salary you'll be paying your developer is probably much, much higher, which means the $20 a month represents an even smaller fraction of the hourly rate that you would pay. Like it's just a really tiny fraction on top. But I think the happiness gains you get out of that for your highest end developers, just simply in terms of them not having to worry about boilerplate, that again improves productivity. So in both cases, you are better off with slightly different outcomes. One is a highly productive outcome for code volume. The other is a high productivity outcome from a happiness dimension. But in both cases, you're still, it's well worth that investment. And my guess is over time, code assistants will do two things. They will get more capable, and they will get cheaper. So, what you're paying now is probably, I think, the ceiling of what you would pay in the future. So I think it's actually not a big deal. While $20 a month sounds like a lot, and you keep thinking in your mind, oh, but I have 2,000 developers, that comes to whatever $40,000. Yes, but even in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of money if you have 2,000 developers.
What are other factors that play a big role in either like fully embracing these, code assistants? Is it about how diverse, how, you know, big is the ecosystem, or is a single player system? Because when we look at the cloud, we talk about multi-cloud. We leverage services from different cloud providers depending on what their excellence is. So when it comes to AI code engineering, what kind of ecosystem you see we are going to build?
The good thing is that the problem that code assistants are trying to solve is a very well defined problem, right? It is a logic problem. It is not one of expressing something emotionally or controversially. So these are well structured things, which means that as you're looking to build new models and train them, you can actually train them really fast, because if something is incorrect, you can actually test it. You can test the output and train the model to like have corrections right away. So the rate of model improvement for coding models will actually be really, really fast. The kinds of issues that executives should look at is, will your code quality go up or down? Right? What sort of outcome are you expecting? What is the goal of your adoption? Is it simply, is it a productivity measure? Is it that, are you having trouble finding the kind of developers you need to get the kind of job done? Is it a more legacy language like COBOL where there are not a lot of trained developers available? So what subspace of the problem are you looking to solve? And that may influence your decision to select one type of coding assistant over another. So if you have a general purpose coding assistant that attaches to any IDE for modern languages, that may have a certain type of price structure and licensing, et cetera, et cetera. But if you have a highly specialized coding assistant which says, okay, we are for the IBM mainframe modernization program, and we can actually take old COBOL and make it something more modern with Java or Go or whatever else, that's a whole other thing. And that type of a coding assistant may actually cost a lot more. It may cost a couple of $100 a month. But again, these problems traditionally have been so expensive that it may again be well worth it. So executives have to kind of go in very clear minded about what it is that they're looking for when they want their teams to adopt a coding assistant.
Since we are talking about executives, also talk about when when they are going to invest resources in these code assistants. Um, how do they really know what returns they are getting? What about KPIs? How do they assess really that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think as part of the technology assessment, they have to establish the KPIs because they have to know what it is that they're looking to solve. So the KPIs could be, what are our defect rates, right? Like if you don't have good test cases, then you really don't even know what your defect rates are. How much time are we spending in regression fixing? So if regressions are a huge problem because you have a massive complex legacy code base, then and your intent is to bring LLMs on so that the coding cannot introduce that many regressions, then you have to figure out a way to measure that. It could be feature velocity. So are we shipping features faster? Like which specific thing are we getting better at? Is it like faster time to market for like are we clearing our queue of uh, you know pull requests faster? Like are we like which specific dimension of productivity are we looking at? Did our billables go down for our contractors because they were actually able to get the work done faster? So again, establishing the metrics in advance and then saying what's the way in which we'll actually measure these outcomes, so that once you do activate the LLM program or the code assistant program, you're actually able to then say, yes, this is working, this is trending in the right direction. And then at some point, these will plateau out. Then the question is, do we keep the program going? Or if we've achieved these gains, like, do these problems come back if we stop using it? So then you have to say, like, yes, code assistants are the tools that are making the difference in helping us being a better organization. And that's that's the type of answer you're looking for. And then you don't really have to test it all at once on everybody. You can take smaller subgroups and really have them try out different things. And that's really how you will try out different types of coding assistants as well. Like maybe one is better at one thing than the other. And how do you know? Well, you have to try it out. So that type of experimentation and internal A/B testing is really what you will have to undertake.
So we talked from the executive's perspective how they should embrace. When developers talking about how when they kind of embrace this code assistant, what impact it has on their workflows, how do they integrate? Should they change the way they work, or should they adopt these tools so that it is in line with the way they work?
I'm always a fan of the tool bending to the user's will, right? So I think there are two ways in which developers generally code. One is inline code completion, and code completion has been around for a while. You press Control space or Command space, and then the rest next option fills up. So one is definitely the inline code completion, and that's really helpful. But what I found is sometimes that can be really, really problematic because it writes too much, and then you have to go back and like clean it up and then fix it up, and that is more problematic sometimes. The other thing is the you ask a specific question on a sidebar, you get a specific answer which you may or may not like, and you can keep refining your ask until you get the answer you're looking for, and then you can copy and paste that in, and then it's a very sort of controlled way in which your code is getting changed, and you're completely in control of that process. So both those workflows are possible, and then I think uh, it's also like sometimes there's a lot of context that LLMs are missing right now. So if there's a way that LLMs can actually imbibe the totality of the project that you're working on and really make an educated sort of option for you to write the next set of code. Uh, and some things I've seen, like they're getting really good at it. Like that stuff is improving really fast. It should I think developers will find that the inline code stuff starts to get really better very quickly. But yeah, those are the two modes: inline and copy paste, and both have their place. Um, but I'm thinking the inline work will start to get even more evolved and faster.
And when it comes to a code assistant, who are the players, big players, in the market that you see, or if you're biased, what are the players that you are like more inclined to either suggesting or using?
Yeah. So I've been a developer basically for like almost 20 25 years. Like even though I'm not doing day-to-day coding for my job, I just code as a hobby anyway. So I've tried out a few. I used some of the Copilot stuff in its early days. I use a lot of Do It AI now. It's plugged into my IDE because I'm deploying a lot of stuff on GCP. Um, so I think all the big players are going to have something there. So the big three cloud providers definitely will have something. Then there'll be niche players like definitely OpenAI and others will have something. So I think just like in the with the platform play, people had to do different types of assessments in terms of, here's what sort of my service mesh solution, which one should I adopt and why, or what sort of my load balancing solution and what should I adopt and why. A lot of this will come down to a classic process of there's so many coding assistants, different price points, different licensing, different means of delivery. Which one should I adopt and why? Um, and it may be that the IDEs that you use internally are not compatible. The languages you use not compatible. The something may be really good, but it requires you to have a clause that agrees to using your software for training. That may not be acceptable. So I think overall, you simply cannot sign up based on price. Again, going to the original point, you have to have a very clear idea of what it is you're doing and why, and that can inform to a large degree the choice of coding assistance that you take.
Does it also depend, like, oh, if you're investing in GCP, just go to do it, or CodeWhisperer or Copilot, depending on Microsoft, or you feel that no, that won't be the case. People will be able to pick and choose the way they want.
The cloud provider you're on will definitely have an offering. All three cloud providers do. So give it a go. Uh, you could have some certain rubrics that you want to clear to make sure that it's meeting your bar. So that what those rubrics are will probably have to be set by a technical steering committee. At the very least, the coding assistant should be able to provide the commands for that specific cloud, right? So it should be whatever the Azure command line interface is. At the very least, you should be able to create a script in that. Or same thing for Amazon, same thing for Google. Like G Cloud commands, Duet AI should be good at doing at the very least those commands. And if you think about then you kind of expand the scope. Then you say, okay, well, how well can it actually help me solve the problems that are generally a lot of toil? So can I generate good Terraform out of these coding assistants for the platform that I'm on? Theoretically, the coding assistant from the specific cloud provider should be good on operating that specific cloud provider. So you can have that. Then you can say, okay, what about operationally? Can it help me debug problems that I'm having with my cloud? So if I'm getting this log message error, if I'm getting these types of audit log errors, if I'm getting some type of notification, can either the Azure assistant or Duet AI or whoever else help me get to the bottom of it quickly? So what are these tests that we can make that allow a team to actually either put out a proper RFP or do a proper internal test, or really have a quantitative assessment based on whichever cloud they're on, to say, does the coding assistant from this cloud itself qualify, or do I need an external coding assistant that is being built by a startup or a third party company that is specializing in the area that I want? It may turn out that you end up with two, that your SRE team uses one, your developer team uses another, and your operations team uses another, and that's fine because it's a power tool. And people who are, again, going back to the woodworking analogy, people who are doing floors and doors are not using the same power tools as people who are doing wooden sculptures. Like, it's slightly different, right? So I think more and more these tools will start to get really specialized. There'll be some that'll purport to do them all. People will have preferences for the more nuanced use cases that they have.
When it comes to these, assistants, are there any risks associated with them? What caveats are there that executives or developers team should be aware of?
I think there's a great tendency to trust the machine, and it'll be, oh, the AI has written it, must be good. And I think what you'll have to do is initially have a really close eye, not even initially, but probably as a program, have a really close eye on your defect rates, on just like what's getting through. So your code review process will have to get really, really good. You may want to automate some of that. You may want to have rigorous test cases, but I think while you will be able to produce some code faster, the amount of inspection you will have to do definitely has to increase in lockstep with it. The other thing is you have to be very careful as to what the actual terms of service of the code you're using, the code assistant you're using are. Are if they are using your code repositories for training or your commands for training, is that acceptable to you? And you have to really know that. If there is a risk of leakage, I know that sometimes when there's autocomplete in some code assistants, you actually see commands that were that have command like variable names that are like from other companies sometimes, right? Like there is cross pollination going on. So you have to be really careful to know, do you trust this? Is there a record of performance in this area, of good isolation in this area, and what sort of what sort of training data are they using? The other thing that can happen is even within a company, sometimes you have confidential projects, right? Especially for a very like early stage product or a product that's yet to be launched. And so if you have a coding assistant that is training on your entire repository and these repositories are not properly sectioned off, there could actually be leakage from one repo to the other, unintentional. So even though it may not get out of your company, even within the company, there may be some way that there's some contamination. So you then have to be very, very careful in how you are either sectioning these things off or limiting access or like have good guardrails around the controls that run these systems. So again, you can never just adopt it en masse. It takes a lot of thinking to actually figure this out.
How much concern executives should have about copyright, IP leaks, or other issues like we are talking laws and regulations also. Those are the areas we have not been fully explored yet.
That's still an emerging field because saying that code came from somewhere with a specific, you have to really like there are different legal bars to prove different levels of infringement. The most the simplest case of a of a policy issue can be that the AI says use this library and you use that library as part of completing your code, but then that library is not something whose license meets the requirements of the product you're building, right? Or introduces a type of variability that is not legally vetted. So it makes it through code review because they're reviewing the code. It's like, oh yeah, this code works okay. It's well structured. It cleans up after itself. It releases resources, does all those things. Like that's fine. But what's happened is now you've gotten an open source license introduced into your system that has not made it through legal review. So if you already have systems with managing open source dependencies, etc., then some of that can be blocked. So if you're a mature coding organization, some of these things will be prevented anyway. Um, Also, if you have a competent provider of coding assistants that are making a reasonable claim that look, we're not going to train on your code, we're training on open source, but giving you the benefit of that kind of learning, or training on Stack Overflow and giving you the benefit of that learning, then that's fine. It's well understood. You trust them, and that's okay. But I think the biggest issue is going to be this sort of if you're not a fully software mature organization, this type of license infringement or license sort of this license issue, this open source license issue, like you're only gonna like let's say you're only standardizing an Apache 2 license, but something has a BSD license, right? Like now that's like how big of a problem is that? Hidden bugs is definitely an issue. It could be something very subtle that gets introduced that is like an obscure bug, and you know you don't check it. Security vulnerabilities as well, because if there are five different options you have to set and you get suggested the wrong one and don't find out what the other ones are, then that could be a problem. So one based on this, actually, one area where coding assistance can be really, really useful is in actually generating test cases. So write your code as you would normally write your code. Where companies usually do not invest or classically underinvest is in doing test cases. So test cases is where it's not code you're shipping. It's not code that is going to have a security vulnerability because it's running internally. But the more thorough your testing, the better your regular written code can be. So if your testing and QA department are starting to adopt it, also if you're looking to kind of test out your APIs and you're hitting your REST endpoints harder and testing them for more kind of like a wider range of inputs or a wider range of attacks, those are the types of things where coding assistants can really shine, and also not have that many issues with IP, code leakage, and other things.
We talked about what it is. We talked about the pros. We talked about the cons. We talked about risk. What is how companies should approach this so that safely, gradually, so they are ready without risking anything? So, what is the right approach looking at these pros and cons of code assistance?
It should undergo an assessment process just like you adopt any other technology. So if you are in the IT leadership of a company, chances are you're getting asked from management, like, what about these? Is this going to make us better? Is it going to make us, more cost efficient? Efficiency is on everybody's mind. So at some level, IT leadership is going to be getting asked those questions. Uh, how they undertake the assessment process is, again, a large part dependent on how they generally do business, but they have processes for these things. For instance, like I said, if they're looking to adopt an orchestration solution, they will be putting an RFP out. Like, here's what we needed to do. If they're looking to, again, get some networking security, they will be putting an RFP out, right? So they should really think in those terms as to what is it that we are then looking to optimize within our organization, and which efficiency, like which vector of efficiency do we want to tackle. So first, define the problem. See where the pain points for your developers are. Are the developers struggling mostly with building proper Docker images? Are they having trouble building, interacting with third-party systems that are less well understood? Like, what area is that? And then it may or may not be a coding assistant that runs directly within the IDE. It could simply be, an API level assistant where you're getting specific answers to specific questions. So it could be that you adopt it one way or the other. Because again, at scale, it does start to cost a serious amount of money, right? I mean, like I said, it's $20 a month. A few thousand developers, it starts to add up. And then you should have a clear idea of what you're okay with, like what type of code sharing are you okay with, what type of training data are you okay with, how much data do you want it to train on your internal repos, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other thing is, how portable is it? So if you at some point say, well, we are not going to be using this assistant anymore, we are switching from one cloud to another, or we are ending our contract with this LLM and going with this other LLM company, how easy is it to make the switch? How seamless will it be for your developers, et cetera, et cetera? So how much of a lock-in does each LLM provide? So I think the questions are going to be very familiar to anyone who's undertaken a technology assessment and a selection process for a technology stack.
Saurabh, thank you so much for taking time out today and talk about this important topic. And as well, I would love to chat with you again soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Swapnil. Thank you so much. This was a really fun conversation, and I hope to do it again sometime.